Tonight, Wonder Woman takes up her new mantle and leaves Sony's lawyers thinking, we might have grounds for a lawsuit. Suicide Squad introduces the most terrifying entity yet, the toilet. And Batman teams up with Aquaman to save, you guessed it, the whales. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 133 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I have tried to record this intro like 4 times now, and my neighbor is mowing his lawn and I'm going to push through it. If you hear him mowing his lawn, I'm very sorry, but screw him, I'm not waiting any longer. So yeah, it's a pretty normal week. There's not a lot to really talk about up here on top. There's only 2 books that I think are any kind of weird that make this a kind of special week. And I'll just give you the full list before I say specifically which 2 books that is. So coming up this episode, we have Batman and Robin, Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Superman Unchained, Green Lantern New Guardians, Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, Animal Man, and Trinity of Sin Pandora. Now, obviously, you're going to have your tie-ins. You've got Suicide Squad as part of Forever Evil. You've got Pandora as part of Forever Evil Blight. But the 2 books that are big deals is Superman Unchained, because that book comes around once every 4 months with the delays. Get on that, DC. But secondly is Animal Man, which is the namesake of this episode because it is the final issue of Animal Man. And I wanted to give it proper credit here at the top of the episode because it is a really good book. I've already recorded the segment for it, so I can tell you I also sing its praises there, but I really want to make it clear Animal Man is possibly one of the best runs in the New 52. And I mean, there's still many more runs I've got to deal with, but that one stands out to me as it really is something special that even modern comics don't hit on, which is it's able to do things that have real changes on the characters that impact them beyond the current arc. So, yeah, I'm going to sing the praise of that book. But anyway, I can hear my neighbor coming around on another turn, so let's just wrap this up and jump into whatever the first comic is. Suicide Squad number 29, written by Matt Kindt, art by Jim Fern. So this is, as far as I can tell, the last part of the Forever Evil tie-ins. And last time we had Kevin Coase trying to take over the OMAC body. Meanwhile, Deadshot, Harley, and Amanda Waller all get shot with magic bullets that make them stronger. So yeah. So we pick up with Amanda, who I guess is fine, and she's talking to Kevin through the computer, and Kevin's just like, hey, Amanda, I'm trying in here. You got to give me some more time. And she's like, I'm giving you as much time as I can because I'm not a heartless monster, but, you better pick it up. And we see that we're on the very ground floor of Belle Reve, where, for some reason, there is a portal to just somewhere. They have no idea where, that you can put stuff in and it just disappears forever. And Amanda calls it the toilet. So that's there. And they're going to throw OMAC in it if Kevin can't get control. So we see Power Girl and Steel. They were knocked outside of Belle Reve. They come to and they're just like, so should we keep fighting or just leave them to their own thing? And Power Girl's like, I kind of want to punch something back right now. So we go to Unknown Soldier, who's about to get the drop on OMAC, and then Deadshot comes up behind him, shoots him in the neck, and Unknown Soldier's like, what the hell was that all about? And he's like, relax, it's a magic bullet. You'll feel super strong and powerful soon. So then we see Captain Boomerang is also trying to get the drop on OMAC, and he throws his boomerang, it misses, and of course, because it's a boomerang, it's about to come back, but then the floor falls out beneath OMAC, and apparently this was Unknown Soldier. That was just happening. So Harley, Deadshot, and Unknown Soldier all start laying into Omac, and Omac's just like, huh, you guys got power-ups. Well, at least 3 of you, and then he turns to Captain Boomerang and tries to zap him with his eye lasers. And then Power Girl jumps in the way and stops it from happening, and Steel hits him upside the head with his hammer, which actually does manage to crack his, protective shell. So inside we have Thinker's like, wait a minute, hold on. I should be more invulnerable than that, unless there's something else in here messing with my brain. And we cut to Kevin, who's inside the personification of his subconscious or whatever, saying oh, I think I can do it. I'm going to be able to do it, Amanda. And she's like, cool, you got 3 minutes, kid. So we see everyone is trying to get Omac down to the lowest levels. They're just trying to blow up the floors. Unknown Soldier lost the detonators, so Deadshot has to set them off manually, and he starts going down level by level. Amanda's saying hey, that rumbling means they're close, kid. You got 30 seconds. And inside of Omac's mind, we see Thinker finally gets to Kevin, and it's bro, this ain't your body anymore. I have taken it over. And Kevin's like, no, but it's my body. It's mine. I want it. And we cut back to real life. They are down on the floor where the toilet is, so it's just a matter of pushing him into the hole. King Shark shows up and says, you killed my father, prepare to die. And Omac's Thinker's how do you know it was your father? Amanda Waller's probably just lying to you. But King Shark doesn't care. He manages to push Omac into the hole, but Omac is holding on to the side. Meanwhile, I think King Shark fell in. So King Shark's just gone from existence. Either way, inside of Omac's mind, we see Thinker has got the upper hand on Kevin. He's just nope, screw you. I deserve this body, and I'm going to use it to its fullest potential. Bye, kid. And he throws him under the waters of his subconscious and tries to drown him. But then, wouldn't you know it, Kevin has that extra little burst of, I can do this. I believe in myself, and he overpowers Thinker and manages to take control of the body somehow. They don't actually show what happened to Thinker inside the subconscious. He just says, I am Omac, and also Kevin Coe. I've done it. Thank you, Amanda. You have really... And then all of a sudden, Captain Boomerang hits Omac upside the head, knocks him into the hole, and says, I did it! Everyone see that? I took out Omac. And Amanda Waller's you stupid idiot. So... we get a little epilogue here saying that, the Suicide Squad was super happy that they had their bombs removed for Forever Evil, and now they're free to go. Except they're not, because the magic bullet things also had bombs in them. So Deadshot, Harley, Captain Boomerang didn't get shot. I don't know why he's so concerned. But James Gordon Jr. also is just showing up here, and he's what did I miss? I guess I passed out. And Amanda Waller says, yep, I'm going to need help building Belle Reve, and the rest of the world's going to need us too. So, all right, I got a few things to say. First and foremost, it's a very fast issue. I don't have a problem with that, and that's because of the other two things. Second, I don't want to diss the art here too bad because, again, it's a million times better than anything I could ever draw. But I have never felt such, stilted art. There was never any sort of movement in these scenes. Everyone was just an action figure that they took a picture of, It's definitely a step down from what the art has been in this book, wholesale. As for the plot, I don't know. It's just, it feels like nothing got resolved, Obviously the big thing was Thinker taking over Omac's body, and that did get resolved to some extent. But, it just felt so hollow. It felt oh, they knocked him into this hole that we just introduced this issue, and that's it. That's all it was. We did it. So, yeah, I don't know. By the time all this ended, I'm oh, okay. I do know that, I believe next issue is actually, the last issue, and then we get it rebranded as, New Suicide Squad at some point. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but, yeah, I don't know. This felt just somewhere along the way, right as this issue was being written, someone said, oh, by the way, you've got this and one more issue. Wrap it up. And then they did. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. It just wasn't a very good issue overall. So I think I'm going to say this is a... Honestly, I can't even speak for art being good. I got to give it a flat 5. I was just, the only good thing about it is it was super quick to read. But the fact that even James Gordon Jr. is just And I'm here too. Like, what was that? Trinity of Sin, Pandora, number 9, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Francis Portela. This is Forever Evil Blight, part 17. I'm not kidding you, 17. That is too long. But regardless, last time in Constantine, we had Constantine is thrown into the pits of hell, whereas Nick Necro was stabbed through the heart and seemingly killed, and also Swamp Thing escaped and is now tearing apart the facility. So, before that, Pandora, Phantom Stranger, Cassandra, Kraft, and the 3 demon sons of Trigon have all teamed up and they're coming in to save the day. And as they arrive in Nanda Parbat, Pandora's like, we're gonna do it. We're gonna save everybody. But like, I suddenly sense that Constantine and Nick Necro have disappeared from this plane, and oops, we might be too late. So we see Felix Faust is yelling just like, what the hell's going on out there? And one of his lackeys is like, Nick Necro's dead and Constantine's going to hell. And he's just like, Jesus, all right, look, that sucks, but like, we can still solve this. We can get this fixed. Let's see what we can do here. And then the lackey's like, okay, but also Dead Man got out of Sea King's body and Swamp Thing's tearing apart everything. And Felix is just like, damn it. All right, we'll figure it out. So we see Constantine going down into hell. There's a demon there greeting him, and he's just like, oh my God, Constantine, what are you doing here? I can't believe we got Nick down here. He just showed up, and we figured you must be not far behind, so come on down. And then Constantine's like, I'm bringing a second. And we see Zoriel the Angels just zooming down the pit, ready to fight the demon. It gets... it splatters demon blood all over Constantine with his flaming sword. And so Constantine uses the blood to cast a spell to seemingly save himself. And that's when Zoriel's like, dude, I'm literally zooming down here to save you. And you're going to try to cast a spell with demons. Do you think God is that done with you, man? So we cut back over to Felix, and he's just like, all right, look, step 1, we got to take out Swamp Thing. He is gone completely animalistic here. Let's take Black Orchid, hook her up to the machine, and we'll use that power in order to fight back against Swamp Thing. And this is a point where he all of a sudden puts on a helmet to do something, and he runs a spell, but then through the back wall starts crumbling, and with an explosion comes in our group of heroes with Pandora. And he's just like, we're here to stop you, Felix. And he's just like, no. And he presses a button. It causes a big rumbling noise. And Pandora's like, what did you do? And he's just like, you have no idea what's going on here. I have done my last-ditch spell where I'm pulling all of the knowledge from all of the wizards across the entirety of the universe. And I am taking their knowledge into my head so I can understand the true of everything. And he looks at Pandora and he says, like, you don't even remember. You're the one that created all of this. And we see Swamp Thing gets a huge, like, blast of energy through his chest, essentially, like, stopping him, tearing him apart. And she's like, what do you mean all this? What do you mean created all this? And we see Felix uses backwards magic like Zatanna to like repel her, and he's like, what? You don't have backwards magic? And he's like, and now I do, because I've got the magic of Zatanna and Enchantress, as she uses an Enchantress spell, and all the other powers. I am all powerful now. I will save the universe myself. It is my duty. So as Phantom Stranger's is trying to get all the other magic people out of the machine, I was just like, all right, cool, we're doing great here. And Cassandra Craft's able to hear Dead Man is like phasing in and out of existence across the hall. So Nightmare Nurse is like, oh, hey, it's Dead Man. Come on back, man. And he's just like, oh, yeah, cool, great, thank you. So Pandora and the Sons of Trigon all blast into the same group where they are, getting everybody in one place. Felix is like, you guys hate the world so much that you think I'm going to let you destroy it? Nah, I'm going to save the universe. So he tells everybody, all of his lackeys, to like get the repairs fixed and all that sort of stuff so that this entire machine is able to stay up. And he turns to the rest and being like, I am not going to let you guys be responsible for the extinction of all of us. And Phantom Stranger's like, whoa. If you are genuinely, honestly saving the universe, we're cool with that, man. But like, talk to us. Stop throwing punches. Like, let's just reason it out. And he's like, I'm going to ask you guys to sacrifice your like entire souls in order to fund this project. Clearly, you're not going to go along with that. So no, I'm not just going to ask you. And Nightmare Nurse is like, dude, Felix is crazy. He doesn't understand that you like literally will sacrifice yourself for a Klondike bar. Okay, just like, don't worry about it. So at that point, Phantom Strange is like, well, maybe this is the reason God isn't getting involved, because this will actually save the universe. And Pandora's like, I mean, maybe. We kind of just rushed in here because John Constantine said we had to, but like he's not around anymore, so maybe we do reevaluate things. And that's when they hear a voice behind them. It's Zatanna saying like, yeah, you did rush into things, but I'm glad you did. And she's like, oh, Zatanna, you're safe. And also John's there too. And just like, yeah, totally. Thank you, all of you. I'm so happy to see you. So Pandora uses that. She's like, Faust, you're going to show us the truth one way or another. She zooms up to him, hits him with a spell in his chest, and says like, I can sense there's good in you, Faust. You have some altruism. You're actually doing this for a good reason, but you're so stupidly egoed here that you're just blocking it all out. So tell us what is the real reason here. Tell us what's really going on. She's like, no. And he just grabs the spell and crushes it in his hand, being like, I don't care if I get punched a few times. I know that this is the right thing to do for me. So yeah, I'm going to do that. But then he starts laying into Pandora, and he's like, you aren't one of us, Pandora. You're not human. In fact, you're not from this universe at all. And Pandora's like, what? What are you saying? And he's like, no. I'm not playing any games here. There's not going to be any more syndicates from other universes. No more demons, no gods. All of this is going. And all of a sudden, Pandora starts like bleeding from her chest. And she's like, he's saying like, see, you're not able to heal yourself. That's how powerful my magic is. And then all of a sudden there's like an earth-shattering kaboom. And we see everybody, except for Zatanna, is being dragged back onto the machine. They're all being tied back on there. And Felix is like, I'm doing it. I've got all the power. I've got the unimaginable intellect of the universe. I can do everything here. And I am going to reshape the universe in my own image to stop all of this sort of like crime syndicate universal BS. And then all of a sudden he gets hit in the back of the head and goes unconscious. And standing behind him is John Constantine, who's like, that's a pretty good idea, but a prick like you doesn't deserve to be in the driver's seat. I think that means someone like me, good old Johnny boy, should be there instead. So John's going to reshape the universe as he sees fit. Is the implication. Clearly, I'm sure there's going to be something that gets in his way, or they convince him like, that's not the right thing to do, John. So I think that next week is the final part. Justice League Dark, I think that's it. I would be very surprised if it's not. So, yeah. I like this issue, if only because while it is forwarding the plot of Blight as a whole, it's also forwarding Pandora of like, oh yeah, remember how Pandora caused like the Flashpoint change of continuity? Like she was there, she did it, and we're just not even referencing that. I'm so happy we're getting back to that like 3 years later. Thank you. But yeah, no, it's solid. I'm looking forward to, honestly, I'm looking forward to the end of Blight just because I'm sick of Blight at this point. Just wrap it up, tell me what's going on in Forever Evil and call it a day. But I'm looking forward actually now to seeing what happens in Pandora after all of this. Whether we're going to explore like, oh yeah, that's right. We wanted you to be a big deal. Let's actually start moving with that. So overall, I'm going to say this issue is probably still just like 7, but it feels like a very important 7. It feels like this is an issue that actually might have some ramifications, so look forward to that. Batman and Robin number 29, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason. So this is the beginning of the hunt for Robin. I believe this one is officially titled Batman and Aquaman, but you know. So this issue picks up with Batman. He is on the hunt for Ra's al Ghul, and he has managed to track him down to the bottom of the ocean. We see him in the Bat sub along with Titus the dog for some reason. Like, Titus just stowed away, and Alfred's like, I have no idea how he got in there, but, you know, whatever. So we see all of these dead bodies chained to the bottom of the ocean floor. And Batman's like, oh, these are all of Damien's old teachers. That's what he said, is that they were kidnapped and now they've been killed because they've outlived their usefulness. And as he's looking through all these bodies, we get a ping from a Justice League member nearby. It's Aquaman. He swims up and he's like, hey, Batman, what you doing in the ocean? And he's like, oh, I'm following this lead for Ra's al Ghul because he dug up the body of my son and his mother. What are you doing here? He's like, I'm Aquaman, and this is the ocean. But also, there are some whales screaming over here. So, probably the same thing you're going on with. So, they all of a sudden get attacked by a bunch of scuba divers with like spear guns and whatnot. And Aquaman's just taking a bunch of them out. We see Ra's al Ghul is like, ah, crap. Batman found us. All right, everyone pack up. Get my son and my daughter, my grandson and my daughter out of here. We're going to go set up something else somewhere else. Let's go. So at one point, someone comes up and be like, sir, we can fight against Batman or whatever. It's like, no. These are two Justice League members. I'm not stupid enough to take them down. Let's go. So Aquaman uses his telepathy power to summon in a bunch of like fish to take care of the rest of the scuba divers. And then him and Batman get up to the surface and they ride in on the beach to this island and are immediately attacked by man-bats. So they continue to fight off those. Aquaman summons an army of crabs to come in and attack the ninjas that are around the man-bats. And then Aquaman goes over one of the like rocky shores and he's like, oh, the whales were screaming from over here. Oh no. Oh God. And he sees just rows upon rows of dead whales. Their stomachs and rib cages just exploded open. And then two more of them are just dangling by the neck from cranes above the sea. And he's like, so we're going to kill this Ra's al Ghul guy, right? And Batman's like, I wouldn't go that far, but like, yeah, we could rough him up a little bit. Also, apparently this is a thing that Ra's learned from Talia back from her Batman Incorporated days, because this is how they did the cloning via like sperm whales. Roll with it. So at this point, they double down. They're like, yeah, we're definitely going to go get Ra's. So they make their way inside of his facility. All the computers are already like frying themselves and like deleting everything. And Batman's like, ah, crap. He's leaving. I got to go get to him. And Aquaman's like, don't worry about it. I'll take all these guys. You go get your father-in-law, I guess. So at this point, Ra's comes over like the intercom just being like, oh, Batman, you let your own son be murdered. And also my daughter-in-law, or your son's mother, my daughter, you suck, and I don't trust you with them anymore, so my plans don't include you, so stay out of it. And then he unleashes a horde of unfinished clones of Damien onto Batman, and they're just all horrific. All of them are terrifying, and Batman rightfully freaks out. He's like, oh my God, they all look like my son. Like, not a lot, but like enough that it's messing with me. So he sicks all of them on Batman, and he's just kind of like telling them like, oh, these are all unfinished clones. Their brains aren't as developed. They're very rudimentary, but they can follow orders well. So Aquaman jumps in the fray. He's ready to just start snapping necks. And Batman's like, no. Don't kill them. They literally have no idea what they're doing. It's just instinctual. They shouldn't be able to do this. And he's like, but the whales, Batman. You saw what they did to the whales. And it's like, that's not their fault. That's just how they were born. And Aquaman's like, fine, cool. How do we beat them? And Batman's like, well, their brains aren't developed yet, and they came from whales. So maybe you could control them like fish. And he does. He's able to control them to jump out a window into the water. And then a giant whale that was not yet drugged up or killed comes in and swallows them all up. Thinking that's pretty efficient murder, but 2 pages later, Aquaman's like, yeah, I had them dropped off in Atlantis. We'll deal with them down there. So they're all alive. So Batman makes his way into a hangar. He starts punching through all the guards, like wasting no time at all. He sees the plane that Ra's is about to take off in and manages to grab onto the back of it as it takes off. And the pilot's like, oh, where are we going? Where are we setting up your daughter and your grandson at? And he's like, I have a special thing on Paradise Island. And the pilot's like, I'm pretty sure that place doesn't exist. And he's like, psh, shows what you know. So Batman gets on top of like the glass and he starts pounding on it. He's like, give me back my son. And he's like, no, sorry, you messed up. You took too long. I am going to bring him back to life. Goodbye. And he tilts the plane over, sending Batman down into the water. Aquaman comes up and grabs him and saves him, and Roz manages to get away. So Aquaman's like, well, I didn't hear you kill him, so I hope that that's still on the menu. He's like, oh, don't worry, I'll make him scream. And Aquaman explains, yeah, I took the guys. The clones are down in Atlantis. We'll take care of them there. No worries. And we get one final thing of what Batman has to do next. He goes to England and he meets up with Diana Prince, who is in her civilian outfit. And, of course, it's Wonder Woman. And he's like, hey, does your, like, civilian costume actually, like, work for you? And she's like, yeah, surprisingly, Clark's taught me a lot. And it's like, yeah, sure. Anyway, I need you to take me to Paradise Island because my son is apparently going there. So, next issue, Batman and Wonder Woman, I guess. I think I like this. And let me say exactly what I mean here. I knew that the Hunt for Robin arc was coming, considering that's literally the name of the trade. But I was kind of hesitant because I kept on expecting it to be, and then Batman realized he can save Damian, despite the fact that the last two arcs have been, but he can't. So the fact that it's not him trying to bring back Damian from the dead, it's Roz, and he's the one who's just saying, let him rest in peace, man. Come on, it's too much what you're doing here. I actually think that's a clever way to get around it if we are going to be bringing Robin back by the end of this arc. Beyond that, I mean, it's good setup. We got Roz. Of course, he would have been hunting Roz after he took Damian's body. Having Aquaman be involved with the ocean stuff makes sense. The whale thing was already pre-established in Batman Inc. I think it's doing a good job of pulling from pre-established continuity and rolling with it, making it work for it rather than trying to fight the tide against it. So yeah, I'm going to say this is I'll give it a 7. It's good. It does feel like we're just kind of like beginning the plot. It doesn't feel like a whole lot of motion has been made here. But if this whole thing is just trying to like get to Roz before he manages to do this, I'm down with that. It seems like it could be a fun little adventure to keep pulling in Justice League members and making that work. So yeah, give this one a 7. Batwoman number 29, written by Marc Andreyko, art by Jeremy Haun and Jason Masters. So last issue, we ended with Wolf Spider discovering there are 2 more of these paintings by Eisenstadt that he's looking for. One is at the Kane family estate and the other is in Arkham Asylum. But first we go back to who the hell is an Eisenstadt? So we see this rich guy named Grantham, and there is, I guess his butler or something like that has lost all of his money on the stock market because of Grantham's assurances that like, oh yeah, you'll make tons of money. It's a sure thing. And then Grantham just chewing out being like, you rolled the dice and you lost. Screw it. And he's just like, that's literally all my savings. What am I supposed to do? He's like, not my problem. Go make me lunch. So all this time, Eisenstadt is painting a mural on this guy's wall, and he sees how much of a monster he is. Grantham goes over, opens up his safe, and then gets a call saying that something's gone wrong, so he has to go off and deal with it. And then Eisenstadt sees the safe open, and he's like, I'm not one for stealing, but like, this guy's a dick. And he walks over to the safe, and he sees something inside of it. I don't know what, but he's like, oh my gosh. So we'll see what that is. But anyway, we cut to today, and Kate has made a appointment with the therapist that Maggie suggested. And he immediately just jumps in. His name is Dr. Huss, and he's just like, tell me what's going on. She's just like, what, no small talk? I thought it was like all this, and isn't there supposed to be a couch? And he's just like, okay, well, do you want small talk for $300 an hour? And she's like, no, that's fair. So she makes like an offhand comment about getting a drink, and he's just like, oh, do you usually escape in alcohol? And he's just like, okay, are we just going to keep doing this where, like, I say, like, some offhand snarky comment and then you read into it more and just like, oh, well, you're answering questions with questions. That's an escape. And she's just like, oh, my God, shut up, man. This is stupid. So at this point, he's saying, like, look, there are problems, like, that everyone has. This is not something that you have to go through alone, and I'm just here to guide you through it. I'm here to help you on your journey. And she's just like, oh, all this New Age speak sucks. So he's like, all right, well, let's get back. Clearly, it's relationship issues. So what is it, boyfriend, husband? And she's like, oh, you assume it's a man. All right, let me roll this one out for you. And she goes through her entire backstory about like her sister, her mom, coming out as gay, all that stuff. And he's just like, yeah. So that's about the high and low of it. What do you think? Is that worth $300 an hour? And he's like, well, it's a place to start now. Would you like to get to work? And she's like, no, you know what? I'm good. This was stupid. Bye. And she just leaves. So we cut over to Wolf Spider, who's planning his attack, and he's like, all right, I'm going to hit up the asylum first, and then I'm going to go after the Kane estate, because that'll just be an easy little cakewalk. So asylum's much more fun. So we cut over to Kate, who's standing outside the GCPD, where Maggie is, and she's just like doing the rooftop, like listening in thing. And Maggie notices her and holds up a piece of paper saying, like, are you just going to stalk all night, or are you going to come inside? So she sneaks in, and she's like, sorry, I didn't know if you would be okay with like seeing me after the whole scaring your daughter thing. And she's like, no, Kate, I still love you. I still want like to be with you. This is not an ultimatum or anything like that. I just recognize that you need help. That's all it is. That's it. And she's like, yeah, I know I'm crazy. She's like, no, you're not crazy. You have like mental health problems. If you had a sore throat, you'd take a lozenge. Like, this is just that. You're getting help for it. So at that point, basically says, all right, well, let's focus on the work stuff. What about Wolf Spider and Batwoman? Both Maggie and Batwoman don't have any leads at all. All they figured out is the stuff with Eisenstadt and what's going on there. But they did narrow down. It's like, okay, one of the paintings' location is unknown, obviously the Kane place, but the other one is in Arkham Asylum. And Batwoman's like, oh, of course it is. All right, well, gonna go there then. I'm sure he's gonna go hit it up soon. And she's just like, okay, well, bye. So they head over to Arkham Asylum, and we are getting absolute D tier here, but we see guards blocking a bunch, like some new guys. They're not that familiar with it. They're blocking a bunch of psychos and special people in there. And Wolf Spider's narrating the whole thing, being like, yeah, no, this is going to be easy. These guys are bigger even mall cops. So as soon as Wolf Spider gets in, all the inmates are like, hey, help us, free us. And he's like, no, shut up. And maybe when I come back, I'll free you. So he runs out into the library, out onto the windowsill outside. When when one of the guards comes out for his smoke break, he's just immediately like, hey, how's it going? And then I think snaps his neck straight up. No, sorry, it's a dart. He hits him with one of his poison darts, puts him to sleep. So he makes his way into the library, and as he goes for where the Eisenstadt should be, it's not there. And then Kate's standing behind him being like, looking for this. And it's like, all right, are we going to fight now? And she's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So they start brawling with each other. Wolf Spider manages to pull down a library rack on top of Kate, gets the painting, and starts making his way out of the room. Kate does try to land a tracker on him just so he's able to keep going. And we see him basically coming to a crossroad where there's an easy escape, and then there's going through the metahuman security wing. And he's like, do you even have to ask? So he goes through the metahuman wing, and as he's trying to hide from Kate, he gets stopped by this woman inside of a cell, and she's just like, hey, that's a cool art piece. You know, me and you are pretty much alike, and I'm not like the other people's in this cell. I'm not crazy. How about you set me free then? And he's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. But he finds himself like doing it anyway. And he's just like, wait a minute, hold on. What the hell is going on here? But then before he's able to break out this woman, Batwoman throws in some flash bombs, and she's like, no, I was so close. And Batwoman's like, all right, Spider, you ready to end this? And Wolf Spider's like, oh, okay, hold on, I'm coming to here. Look, we're just starting, all right? This is just the beginning of things. And she's like, so GCPD are on the way. It's Arkham. There's no way you're going to be able to escape once this place is on lockdown. And she's like, guess I need a distraction. And so he turns the master key to the cells in this wing and then swings his way out. And all of the D tier inmates come out and start attacking Kate. And she just says, crap. So, yeah, that's the issue. It was fine. It was a fine issue. I can't say I really super enjoyed it or disliked it. It was a perfectly fine issue. I do find myself missing the more outlandish layouts that we got in like the first 20 issues of this series. There was like one in this where as he was pulling down the library bookshelf, it like showed him leaping onto a book and then out of one of the pages. And like, it was creative, but that used to be the thing they would just do all the time. Like, your eye would just wander around the page. Now it's very succinct. It's very straight to the point. So I kind of miss that a little bit. But beyond that, I mean, it's a fine issue just in terms of general comic book. I'm not really sure where we're going with it. The cover to this really implies that the woman in the cell is important. And just to skip to the chase, the woman in the cell is Nocturna, who apparently is like a vampire lady, but she's barely in this at all. So I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be spending with Wolf Spider, whether that's going to get wrapped up like next issue and then we'll go with Nocturna. It beats me. But regardless, I'd say that this is probably like a 6.5. It's fine. It's all right. It's just not anything stand out great. Birds of Prey number 29, written by Christy, Marx, art by Scott McDaniel and Robson Rocha. So last issue, Gothtopia. But more than that, we had Ra's al Ghul show up and say, hey, Black Canary, I can bring your husband out of his coma, but you have to let me kill Mother Eve. And she's considering it. So this issue picks up. She's just screaming off the port bow of this dock. And everyone's like, Jesus, everyone can hear her from here. And Condor is training inside of the training room. And he's just like, stupid Kurt. You still being alive is messing with me getting Canary. But, eventually she's going to have to give up on you because you're in a coma and then I can have her. And he's being like really weird about that. But he's on a punching bag and his telekinetic ability surges all of a sudden. And he's able to like stab through the punching bag. And he's like, oops, sorry, my bad. So he hears Dinah screaming and he comes out and just be like, hey, what's going on? Are we being attacked? And she's just like, no, I'm just upset. And he's like, fair enough. So he goes down to Kurt's room and the doctor's like, yeah, no. Basically, we just told her, like, he ain't coming out of it. He's definitely stuck in this thing. And we took all of his stuff out of him from, like, Basilisk Machine, but he's still not coming back. However, when we did that, we also made it so that his powers will no longer affect your powers or Black Canary's. No more random power surges. So, yeah, at this point, it's just a matter of how long does she want before we take him off life support. And Condor leaves and is met by Claudine, who I think goes by the name Uplink, but she was like that weird telepath that we met like 4 issues ago. And she's just like basically saying, hey, Batgirl and Strix are off doing something in Batgirl's book. Should we go after them? And Condor's like, I'll go after them. No worries. And so he just flies off and she's like, oh, should I tell Canary? And she's like, don't bother. She won't even notice I'm gone. So at this point, Canary pulls out the vial and she starts considering. She's like, all I have to do is betray Mother Eve and I can bring my Kurt back to life. Isn't this? I have to at least try it. I have to see. So goes into the room where Kurt is, sends the doctor out. And then takes the vial and is like saying, Kurt, come on, give me something. Give me anything. Prove to me that you're still in there. And she puts the vial into his IV drip and almost immediately he says water. And at that point, he's just like, oh my God, he spoke. Bring the doctors in. So he's amazed by that. The doctor's like, this is a miracle. There's no reason this should have ever happened. But like, yeah, no, it's a great first step. He's conscious enough to ask for water. Yeah, absolutely. And then one of Mother Eve's guys sees this and just be like, hey, Mother Eve, it is super obvious that she made a deal with Ra's al Ghul. So, like, we clearly shouldn't trust her anymore, right? And she's like, no. Look, I've made my decision. I trust Black Canary to make the right choice in the end. So we're just going to live or die by that. And Mother Eve goes and talks to her, like, surveillance guys. And the surveillance guys are like, yeah, Ra's al Ghul's on his way. He's going to be here in, like, an hour. So right as night falls is when he's going to show up and we're going to have to fight for it. So Mother Eve sends out an emergency broadcast in order to get Batgirl and Condor back on here and then tells them to send out the helicopter to go pick them up. So meanwhile, Condor's flying through the city trying to find where exactly Batgirl and Strix are. He gets attacked by a drone, but the drone just has like, I guess, just like missiles that don't explode, and they just like hit him, and he's just like, what the hell was this? So he lands on a roof, and it turns out that the missiles were actually a hologram projector of Ra's al Ghul. And he's like, hi, Condor, I'm Ra's al Ghul. Here's the thing. I want you to stand aside when I go to fight Mother Eve. And he's just like, why in the hell would I do that? And he's like, oh, because I can offer you something. He's like, I don't want money. He's like, I'm not giving you money. I promise that I will send in my assassins and they will make sure that the first thing they do is kill Kurt. So that way Black Canary can be yours and you have total plausible deniability. And he's just like, that's really tempting, but I need proof. I need you to do it like very, very first thing. Up until then, I'm going to keep fighting against you until he's proven to be dead. And he's just like, fair enough. I'll make sure it happens in the very first wave of attacks. No problem. So at that point, they get the call for, hey, come back to the boat. The battle's about to begin. And Ra's al Ghul is just like, all right, cool. Everything's kind of falling into place. I'm liking how things worked out. Super lucky that Kurt showed up on that boat, right? And one of his lackeys is like, sir, aren't you the one who pulled the strings and gave Kurt over to Basilisk? And he's like, you're right, it is. I guess it has nothing to do with luck. I'm just that awesome. So they're about 20 minutes out, and the battle is about to begin. And we see Ra's is like charging up his army. He's just like, all right, we're doing this old school style. The way that, you know, the rules of entry is swords only. So get on in there, conquer them. So we see Batgirl is walking in. And she finds out the news about Kurt and Canary and all that. And she's like, oh, he hasn't spoken again, but it's a start. And she's like, yeah, okay, look, here's the thing. I need you out here fighting rather than locked in the infirmary. And she's like, yeah, no, totally. I'm all in. I'm ready to help. But, like, I'm here. I'm with you. And we see basically Batgirl also calls out Condor on acting weird as well. And just like, why are you guys, like... I don't know, something's off about you, and I can't place my fingers on it. But then she looks around and sees that nobody has any guns, and she's like, what kind of fight are you planning here? He's like, oh, it's old school. We're both immortals, so therefore we're going to fight with swords. That's just the way that Ra's is doing things. And this is when Canary finally asks the question, wait, hold on. If you're both immortal, why does Ra's need you at all? Like, he already is immortal. And she explains, it is because her immortality comes from within. Whereas he needs the Lazarus pits. So he wants to unlock the secrets of how she does that. And turns out she's already like on her deathbed. She's about to go through the process that's going to keep her young or whatever. But it's going to take some time, about 2 to 3 hours. And she has a little pod for it. And she's like, look, I'm going to be in my pod. Black Canary, you are in charge of guarding my door. I want you and only you in charge of that. And Batgirl's like, you heard her. And Black Canary's like, I think I should be literally anywhere else. How about Condor? He's like, nah, Condor needs to be able to fly. You are perfect for this. Close quarters. You can blow away anybody coming in through the hallways. You got this. So everyone gets to their post. Strix is just ready to go. Condor's a little bit standoffish. Black Canary is literally like breaking down of like, what do I do? What do I do? And Batgirl's like, all right. I hope they're all ready to go because the fight is here as we see a bunch of ninjas jumping onto the boat ready to go. So, yeah, no, I'm good with that. I think it's actually quite an interesting dilemma there because if Condor stands aside, Black Canary has no reason to because Kurt will be killed. But if Black Canary stands aside, then, and like, you know, Condor doesn't, then he'll get to live. So it actually puts character motivations in a very interesting light here, where it's how badly do they want this thing. And obviously, because they're both heroes, I expect them to both to come down on the side of, it's not worth it. Mother Eve, we're going to protect life because whatever. So I get that. I think that's fine. I do think that the motivation for Ra's is just a little bit shaky. Like, I don't know, it doesn't quite jive with what I was getting. It felt more like a grudge match that was going on. The fact that this is something instead to do with her regeneration abilities, I don't know, that seems weird to me. I feel like there's much better motivation here for immortals on why they could be warring against each other. But if that's what we're going with, then hey, so be it. Beyond that, I think this is probably just going to be a flat 7. It's fine, it's good, it's nothing standout, but it does at least raise the stakes significantly. And as much as I don't like the fact that they felt they had to devote 2 full pages to saying Strix and Batgirl are off in Batgirl's book, that kind of felt unnecessary, but hey, the rest of it worked fine. Harley Quinn number 4, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Stéphane Roux. So last issue was kind of a Valentine's Day themed, but this issue picks up on the main plot again, where we have Harley doing full body skin colored makeup in order to cover her white skin, and she's talking to her beaver saying like, oh yeah, if I had known how big of a pain this was going to be, I wouldn't have involved a job that I was going to have to go in every day. But we see her get fully dressed up in her stereotypical doctor outfit, and as she's walking out the door, she's stopped by Tony, and Tony says something, like some blueprints are ready that he's designing, and apparently it's supposed to get rid of all the phytofoulness. And it sounds like it's going to be a catapult. So we'll see how that works out. But she's like, yep, all right. You got like 4 months without rent if you build this for me. So hop to it. And so she drives off to work. Later at the nursing home, she is essentially just a therapist, psychiatrist for these people in the nursing home. And she gets this old woman who is just completely miserable. She's just like, oh, my children and my grandson, they're the light of my life, but they don't visit me anymore, and I'm so sad all the time, and I just want them to come in before the angel of death visits me with a softball-sized blood clot. And Harley gets super sad about this, and she's like, okay, look, our session's done, but let's talk more on Friday, okay? And she's like, oh, if I don't die by then. So immediately, Harley's supposed to meet up with the next guy, but she's like, I gotta go do something. I'll be back, Miss Boss Lady. So she looks through the computer trying to find Rubenstein. She gets some address information, and then she just runs out the front door. And her boss is like, oh, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Borgman. We'll have to reschedule. And we see this old man who has a cybernetic eye. He's like, hey, I'll wait. What else have I got to do? So we see the Rubenstein household, and we have a son who's playing a bunch of violent video games, just shouting kill, kill, kill over and over again. We have a dad who's down in the basement who's just completely absorbed into his model train set. And then we have a mom who is selling personal massagers to all of her housewife friends, and she's like, oh, can't you just feel that rumbling? But it turns out the rumbling is not the toys. It is Harley in a bulldozer who knocks down one of their walls. And she's like, hey, which one of you is Jenny Rubenstein? And the woman chimes up, she's like, oh, that's me. And she immediately sends all the other women out. She goes over to the kids' TV set and just bashes it with a tennis racket, starts beating the crap out of him, and shoves his socks down into his own mouth. And then she goes downstairs into the basement where the father is and just starts destroying the whole model train set. And he's like, oh, that took me 18 years to build and you destroyed it. And she's like, shut up, I'm living out my Godzilla fantasy. She just mashes through everything else there. So she has all 3 of them bound and gagged, brought upstairs. Well, only the kids gagged, I guess. And she's just like, all right, you got 3 guesses to figure out why I'm here today. Go for it. And she's like, did we do something to you? And she's like, no, not to me. And the husband's like, oh, did someone else do? Or did we do something to someone else? And she's like, yeah. And the husband's like, are you for my secretary's husband? And she's like, okay, well, a lot of big asks today, but nope. And the kid just like shouts something that's not intelligible. And she's just like, nope. So because you didn't guess, you're winning an outing with me. And she takes him and throws him into the trunk. So we cut to a diner later where she's just eating some fries, and in walks this guy named Guido. And it's just the cantina scene from Star Wars. Like, Harley is Haun, and this guy is Guido, and it's just the same scene where it's like, oh, you've got a price on your head, and I'm going to take you in for it, and blah, 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 blah. But we see that he's got a gun under the table, and Harley takes a fork she was using, stabs it into his chest, and kills him. So later on, we see Harley is late to her roller derby thing, and they've already been beaten. They've been totally taken out. And Harley's like, crap, what can I do? What can I do to help? And she's like, nothing. Unless you want to go after our teammates, the crabs, and make sure that they can't participate. The only way that we're going to win is if they're crippled. And she's like, got it. So she hops in her car, waits for them to exit the roller derby, and then runs them all over with the car. And all of her teammates are like, oh, God, is that legal? Oh, Jesus. I mean, it was cool. That was awesome. And even the team leader's like, oh, yeah, that was kind of hot. So we see Harley still driving the car. And she's like, I know I'm forgetting something. What is it? What am I forgetting today? Here's a thumping from the trunk. And she's like, oh, right. I put them in the back seat. So she drives him to the end of a dock. And she's like, all right, the reason I took you all here is because you are ignoring a wonderful woman. That's right, Ida Rubenstein. How dare you? Your mother-in-law, your mom, and your grandma. How dare you ignore her? And she takes the young one and like pushes him over the edge of the dock. Mind you, they're still bound up, so they can't swim. And she's just like, oh, would it kill you to pick up the phone every once in a while? Would it kill you to like go and visit her? No, that's you guys are despicable. And she kicks the mom off the dock as well, leaving only the dad left. And he was actually gagged at this point. And so she takes out the gag and she's like, what do you have to say for yourself? And he's like, we visit her multiple times a week. My wife goes and has lunch with her every Sunday. We visit like 3 times a week otherwise. Derek visits her after Saturday baseball. Like, she has dementia and she just forgets that we're there. And Harley's like, ooh, I didn't read the patient file. That's right. All right, well, I hope you learned your lesson. And she's like, my family's drowning. You untie me. And she's like, right. So she frees the guy. He dives off the dock. It turns out it's low tide. So they're all fine. It was just sand that they landed on anyway. And so Harley hops in her car, turns around. She's like, sorry, hope you all still call your grandma. Bye. So we see Harley is back in her office, and the guy that she delayed from before, Mr. Borgman, comes in, and he's like, I'm here for my appointment. She's like, sorry, we're after hours. And he's like, oh, well, I recognize you, Harley Quinn. And she's like, what? That's you, someone else. And he's just like, no, I know everything about you. Let me tell you about myself. And apparently he was a secret agent that worked for the government. His codename was Cyborg with an S. And then one day he got in deep with the gang of underbosses, and he lost some limbs in an explosion, and he was turned into an actual cyborg that worked for the feds. But nowadays, because they're outdated prosthetics, and he's like 90, it's just weighing him down, and he has to use a scooter everywhere. And he's like, all right, but I got a deal for you. The gang I mentioned, there's still a bunch of them out there. My mission needs completing, and I think that you are just the type of person to do this. They've been undermining the American dream. What are we going to do? And he's just like, I don't really want to do anything. And he's like, okay, or I can reveal you to your employers and get you fired. And she's like, all right, let's do this thing. So, yeah, we get a geriatric cyborg named Borgman. It's great. This was a decently funny comic. I actually got more out of like the little side cutaways of like the Star Wars bit. As much as I groan at that, it was funny in the moment when you realize it. And then the bit with the roller derby, that stuff was fine. Honestly, I feel like the Rubenstein plot's just kind of like fine, not great. It's got an okay punchline, but it takes so long to get there that it's like, did we need like 12 pages devoted to just that? No, I'm up for the Borgman stuff because I know that he's a recurring character. He shows up quite a bit in this book, so we'll see how they manage to develop him more and we get more information in that regard. All in all, I'm going to give this one, I'll give it a 6. It sounds harsh, but as much as I want to like this book, there is always going to be a level of disconnect because I'm just not that into Harley as a character. So I'm trying to take my opinions out of it and just do it objectively, but it is still just a 6 for me. Red Hood and the Outlaws, number 29, written by Will Pfeifer, art by Rafa Sandoval. So, start of a new arc, and it's called The Big Picture. I don't know what we're entailing here, but regardless, we open up on Jupiter with some voice reading off saying how, oh, the great red spot on Jupiter is this supermassive storm on a super heavy planet. There's no way life could possibly survive. And we cut into a spaceship that's reading this book saying like, these humans are so stupid. They don't even think that we exist. They're going to be easy to take out. And then one of them takes the book being like, dude, this was published in 1954. Clearly these humans might be more advanced knowing that it's so many years later. And they're like, well, we'll see. So they set a teleporter pad and saying like, all right, let's get on. And they're expecting a fourth one named Zerk, but it's like, he'll be around, and the teleporter will still have active coordinates for 15 minutes, so you can pop in whenever. So we then cut down to Earth. We get introduced to each of the Outlaws. Corey is flying around. She's swimming with dolphins. She's like, this place is awesome. Everything's cool on Earth. Meanwhile, Jason is fighting against a bunch of aliens to some extent, and he's using his swords and stuff. Turns out, as he beats them all, it's just a training thing, and he did set a new record there. And he's like, all right, well, let's run it again. And then we cut over to Roy, he's got his comms off. Like, those two are talking to each other. He's got his comms off because he's working on a nuclear bomb that is powered by AI, so it can literally walk by itself. And so he's just doing that. And as he's messing with it, it manages to get up and leave the lab and go into one of the air vents. And he's like, all right, maybe I shouldn't let the nuclear bomb just walk around aimlessly. So he gets into the air vent. And as it starts moving through, he tracks it to the main, deck of this spaceship, which I think is still on Earth, but the outside looks starry, so not entirely sure on that. But regardless, the three aliens from before teleport in, and it's like, cool, we got the coordinates. Let's go. And they're like, all right, should we disengage the security? And it's like, pshaw. The Tamaranian knows nothing about security, so let's just get in here and run our little test. So Roy's like, okay, well, this could be a problem. But he manages to grab the nuclear bomb thing, and then all of a sudden the engines start up, and he realizes that the ship is taking off. He looks out the window, he sees Red Hood just falling out to the ground, and he's like, all right, well, that's not good. So Jason watches as the ship takes off. Corey's like, hey, where's my ship going? What's going on here? And Red Hood explains, like, look, I'm trying to get a hold of him. He's not answering his comm. I'm also trying to use the psychic backdoor I put in when we were fighting the League of Assassins. And she's like, psychic backdoor? And he's like, don't worry about it. But he's not answering any of those, so something's up. So we go up into space. Roy's still maintaining the element of surprise. He's staying stealthy inside the air vents. And he sees these aliens who are taking control of the ship. And he's just like, all right, well, clearly they're not supposed to be here. So I'm going to use my full rights here to defend my homestead. So he takes the nuclear bomb thing and he drops it down onto the ground. It walks up next to this guy, and he manages to dampen the charge a little bit, but it does explode. And this dude just immediately turns into goo. And he's just like, oh, what the heck is this? So all the other guys are like, geez, all right, stop messing around, pull yourself together. And the dude just reforms immediately. And Roy's like, all right, that could be a problem. So he actually manages, he's just like, oh yeah, so reforming like that always gives me a bit of a buzz. Anybody else? And he's just like, nah. So Roy puts together like, okay, they're all able to reform from possibly life-ending injuries. That's going to be a bit harder to deal with. So back on Earth, Jason and Starfire are trying to figure out what to do here. They realize that the ship is at least past Saturn by now, and all of their stuff is on it as well, so there's no way that they could track the ship as well. And they're just working through it, trying to figure out what to do there. But then all of a sudden there's this noise behind them, and it's a giant lizard monster with 2 bottles of beers in his hand. And Starfire is like, Starfire, is this one of your friends? He's just like, nope, never seen him before. So the dude steps up and he just grabs Red Hood by the head and starts tossing him around. And obviously Red Hood chops off his hand, is ready to fight. He uses his other hand to grab Jason again, and that's when Starfire just incinerates him. And Red Hood's like, all right, well, that's going to make interrogating him a little bit more difficult, but, whatever. So at that point, it again, like all of his friends, starts to regenerate. It comes to it. Starfire is just like, all right, look, I can kind of understand what he's saying. It's like Tamaranian, but like it's like he's drunk. And it's like, well, he probably is drunk. But regardless, see if you can ask him something. So we cut back over to Jason, who's trying to figure out what's going on. He gets over to the surveillance pit, and he sees that they have invaded the weapons chamber. And he's like, okay, all right, what do they plan on doing here? And the main dude's typing in some stuff in the console, and we see them over top of this planet where he takes this, it's not a bomb, it's like a cargo container, and he drops it down onto this planet. And Roy's like, okay, so they're not blowing up the planet, maybe it's just like an investigatory drone, maybe that's what it is. And then all of a sudden it like explodes out, and it unleashes a swarm of nanobots that self-replicate and just immediately destroy all life in like this area of the planet. And as we zoom out and see it further back, we see that this is the like emblem, the logo of these guys. They've branded this planet, and they're like, all right, perfect. This is the perfect demonstration of our product. Now we show like various warlords and like evil people around the galaxy what our product can do, how easily it can wipe out people, and so many others will be super in on that. So let's go for it. So then back down on Earth, we see Jason and Starfire still interrogating the big lizard guy, and Starfire's like, oh yeah, he'll tell us anything we want to know. Like he's begging to tell us after what we put him through, and he's like, good, perfect. So let's see exactly how we're supposed to get there, because he does say that the ship is on the other side of the galaxy at this point. And Starfire's like, can't you just get a spaceship from Batman or the Justice League? And Jason's like, no, we can't. However, I think I have an idea where we could pick one up. And we cut over to Shade headquarters where Frankenstein is. And Father Time, who's Frankenstein's boss, is like, hey, Frankenstein, don't you think you should lock up the spaceship? And he's like, no, this is Shade headquarters. Who would think to bust in and try to steal our spaceship? That's stupid. So they're clearly going to do that. I'm interested, to say the least. It's got a lot of moving parts. We got this group who is clearly like product testing weapons of mass destruction, and Roy's the only one up in space able to deal with it. We got Frankenstein's going to get involved into the mix somehow. I did like when Red Hood went to space before, so maybe we're going to keep up with that kind of energy for a little bit. I'm down with that. So yeah, no, it's got a lot of promise. I can't say I dislike the voice of the new writer. I will say Rafa Sandoval draws Jason when he's wearing his Red Hood mask. You can see his pupils. Dislike that. 100%. Stop that. Don't do that anymore. I don't know why they even started. But yeah, no, it's beyond that. It's fine. I'm going to say 6.5 for this. It's mostly just cautious optimism. I'm hoping that this might actually be a decent run, but with Red Hood, I've learned to be a little bit more picky than that. Supergirl number 29, written by Tony Bedard, art by Yildiray Cinar. This is the continuation of the Red Daughter of Krypton. I say continuation, it's part 1. Last time was a prologue where Kara was fighting Lobo, Shaban, aka Silver Banshee, got involved, and then Kara got a red ring. Rage powered now. So we cut to a month ago, which I guess the entire past like 2 arcs of Supergirl was a month. We see that Shaban has her heating is not working in her apartment, so Supergirl is literally able to cook Shaban's food as she's holding it with like chopsticks. And Supergirl's like, you trust me and using my powers like this? And she's like, yeah, why wouldn't I? You're cool. Let's do this. So they get a little bit distracted as they're talking about like, oh yeah, no, we've got a great friendship and everything's always going to be cool. And Supergirl accidentally burns the food and they just start cracking up laughing. And then we cut to modern day where Supergirl is using her napalm breath or whatever to burn down the ground that Shaban was standing on. She's like, well, yep, that's different now. So Shaban recognizes that Supergirl is just transformed, not herself. Something's got to be wrong. And she's just doing her best to survive at this point. So she's running out the ground. And she's like, all right, that pale guy, Lobo, she was fighting, he seems dead. So whatever about that. But Siobhan realizes this was a mistake, so she starts making her way back to her apartment. But then Supergirl catches up, and she's like, Siobhan, you're always running from me. What's going on? And she's like, oh, Kara, I'm your friend. Don't hurt anyone. She's like, oh, I want to hurt people. So we cut down to the block where Dr. Veritas is, and she's like, what's going on up there? And it's like, well, she pretty much fought off Lobo, but now she has some sort of extra power. And Veritas is like, that's a Red Lantern ring on a Kryptonian. We're all gonna die. Sound the alarms. DEFCON 5. And then she's trying to sound the alarms, but the security team is held up. And it's like, what do you mean they're not responding? And we see that creature from like 2 issues ago that Veritas was making a deal with named Blaze just is coming out of its cell. It's managed to kill like the entire security team, and then it disappears into a cloud of smoke as more people approach. So Veritas is like, well, we better make sure we lock that down first instead of Kara, because if that thing gets out, we're definitely dead. So back up on top side, Siobhan's talking to Kara saying like, hey, did that pale guy do something to your mind? Just let me help you. And she's like, help? And she's like, yeah, help. And then all of a sudden the NYPD's got a spotlight and a helicopter trained on Kara. She immediately flips around, starts blasting at it, and Siobhan's like, all right, I can't do this without Silver Banshee powers, so let's go for it. So she transforms, and Silver Banshee is like a different personality in this. So she's saying like, oh God, it hurts so much to let you out, but like, you just need to stop her. That's all we're doing. And Silver Banshee starts to go free, but then Siobhan's like, no, I can take control here. I have the power to do that. And so we see this back and forth dialogue in her head of saying like, what? No, you can't take control. And she's like, yes, I can. We're doing this my way. And she says like, yeah, I'm using magic. Luckily, that's Kara's weakness, so it should actually be able to do something to her. But then Kara just lands a solid punch and sends her flying pretty much right to her own apartment. And Siobhan looks up and sees her new roommate there being like, ah, crap, I got to get out of here. I don't want this place being torn apart. Meanwhile, the new roommate's talking to, I guess, a third roommate who's saying like, yeah, we need to talk about Siobhan because she finally went and did it. We got to, whatever that means. So Kara flies in, starts using her napalm breath. Silver Banshee uses her scream to like deflect it. And the Silver Banshee entity is like, hey, you don't know half about my powers. Let me go free. Let me show you what I can really do here. I can get her out of here. And Siobhan's like, fine, show me. And so the scream manages to go so hard that it teleports them 100 miles away. And Siobhan's like, that doesn't make any sense, but all right, I'll take it. So at that point, she's saying like, no, this was a mistake. I shouldn't have let you have so much power. I shouldn't have transformed. Oh God, this was a mistake. And then we flash back to when Kara became Siobhan's roommate for a while. She tidied up the place, and Siobhan's like, oh, you've made a mistake. I had it just the way I wanted it. So then Supergirl goes around with super speed and sets it back to being trashy. And Siobhan says like, oh, hey, one thing you got to understand is sometimes you got to let people clean up their own messes. Got it? So we have Kara and Siobhan continue fighting. We see it just keeps going on and on and on until we get to Lobo, who's still in Queens. He wakes up and he's like, all right, my ship got blown up and I need to get back into space. So he pulls out the data dagger from before and he's like, are there any ships on this planet? And he's like, yep, we can find some. And he's like, cool. Do we know where the other Lobo is? And he's like, yep, we got an idea. And he's like, cool. Guess this wasn't a waste of a trip after all. So Lobo will return in Avengers Endgame. So we cut over back to where the fight of Kara and Siobhan is going on. And the Silver Banshee is just like, you can't save her. You'd be doing her mercy by killing her. This is blood magic in a ring. You got to take her out. And she's like, no, I'm not going to abandon her. I've got to get her out of that. And she's like, do you not remember what you said about letting people clean up their own messes? I think we were pretty straightforward about that. So Kara screams out that she needs revenge. And Siobhan's like, what do you mean revenge? Revenge for what? And she's like, Krypton. And she's like, well, whoever blew up Krypton's not down here on Earth, stupid. Go up into space if you want to find that out. And so Kara goes, okay, and just flies off into space. And Siobhan's like, all right, well, I guess that works. I wish I could do more to help her, but yeah, if she's going to be like this crazy, we just need to get her off Earth for now. So see what happens next in Green Lantern / Red Lanterns number 28, which came out last month. So Good job editorial on that. And then we get one last page here, which is a planet called Karth that is being attacked by this red demon-looking group of aliens. And one of the guys reports to his superior saying, like, hey, we're attacking everybody, but they're, like, super easy to kill. Like, they're not even fighting back. What's that about? And we see the main dude, who I feel like I should recognize, but I definitely do not, is he does have the, like, Brainiac font. So, cyborg of some sort, I guess. And he's basically saying, like, this is our task in order to strengthen planets in the universe as a whole. So we will continue to destroy as many planets as we can because that is our sacred duty or whatever. So yeah, that's a thing. I'm sure that'll just tie into whatever the main Supergirl plot's going to be while she has a red ring, but frankly, I don't know it yet. So either way, I think this is a solid issue. It's good to be able to go back and tie in those earlier threads of Shaban and Silver Banshee and all that in a way that I think makes a decent amount of sense. Like, if she's in Queens, clearly Shaban should be involved, and it makes sense why she would bring out her power set here. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. But I do want to make the little passing mention that editorial really should have either delayed the Green Lantern, Red Lanterns thing to make it make more sense, or they should have sped this up a little bit, because there's no reason that this should have come out after that one. In fact, 2 issues after, because the last issue of Supergirl was after that one as well. So get on it, editorial. Fix your 10-year-old mistakes. Superman Unchained number 6, written by Scott Snyder, art by Jim Lee with Dustin Nguyen on the backup. So last issue, we had Ascension using a thing called the Earthstone, just launching all the nukes, because access to all technology or something like that. And that's kind of the big takeaway there. So we cut to the world. Superman's just thinking about everything, and he mentions how there's this mattress commercial in Metropolis that, like, features a copyright-free version of him, and he saves a bunch of people, and then he goes and he lies down in bed and closes his eyes. And he mentions, like, I hate that commercial so much. I can't put my, like, I just hate it so much. And Bruce apparently offers to sue them, but he's like, nah, don't worry about it. And then he says another thing that bothers him is the number 919, which is how many nuclear warheads are active and ready on high alert at any given moment across the world. And he just hates the fact that that's too many for him to handle. So the fact that all the nuclear warheads have just been launched, Batman calls over and is like, bro, we got to get on this now. And he says Green Lantern, he can take out like 4 to 6% of them. Wonder Woman's going to help Green Lantern. You can take out like 35% if you like really focus on it. And he's like, okay, but that's still not 100%. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go after Ascension. And Batman's like, you know where to find him? He's like, yeah, totally. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get all the answers and we can shut down the nukes before they even land. So Batman signs off, Superman flies off with Wraith, and is like, all right, Wraith, me and you are going to have to focus and take out all the stuff across the world. And he's like, excuse me, Superman, I'm an American. I'm only going to focus on American targets. And he's like, are you serious? Dude, we go to Ascension, we can just stop all of them around the world. And Wraith's like, it's not my problem. America's my problem. I'm going to focus on that. So Superman calls him out and says, whatever happens next is on you. So we cut over to where Ascension is, which I think is a submarine. And Lois is like freaking out, just like, what did you do? I'm going to kick your ass. And he's like, yeah, there's nothing you can do to stop us. And they're about to burn her alive for, not letting her see anything here. And that's where Superman comes in. And he just, eyes glowing. He's like, you, tell me what I need to know now. And they're like, we're not afraid of you, alien. And he punches one of them so hard that like their liquid mask just comes off. And he starts using his heat vision enough that all of their masks start like breaking down. There's nothing they can do about it. So he grabs one of them and says like, tell me how to shut it down. And it's like, no. We're fine. We're going to raise up from the ashes and you're going to be forced to leave the planet. You suck, Superman. And that's where Lois jumps in and gives the rundown. Says, like, they got a thing called an Earth Stone. This is a crystal shard from it. It can control all the nukes. That's all I know. And he's just like, oh, this is kind of like the crystals in the fortress. Oh, let me see if I can mess around with this. But it's different. And he's like, yeah, it's Earth made. Stupid alien. And so this guy reaches down, he presses a button, and self-destruct sequence activates. So Superman moves at super speeds to wrap Lois up in his cape and fly her out from the sub, effectively managing to save her life. But clearly, there's still the issue of the nuclear bombs. They're still flying. And Superman literally sees them going over his head. We see Wraith is definitively unable to stop all of them. So even though he's trying to protect America, he's still missing many, many of them. And Lois is like, is that it? Did we just lose? And Superman's like, no, we didn't. So he looks at the crystal shard again, and he's like, this thing still has some level of access to the nukes. If I can just make it so that they explode in midair without activating the warheads, then we can just do cleanup on the warheads later on. And he's pushing it, but the crystal's fighting it back against him, so he uses all of his energy and possibly his heat vision as well to push the crystal to the limit, and he manages to do it. He stops all the nuclear warheads that are flying. So he touches down on like an iceberg. Wraith comes in, and he's just like, wow, Superman, you did it. Awesome. Military's going to need that crystal, though. We're going to run some tests. And he's like, screw you and your military. And Lois Lane's like, yeah, tell my dad, screw you. And that's where Wraith is just like, I told you we'd eventually come to fight. Yeah, that's how it's going to be. And he comes in and he tackles Superman, and he like sends him into the side of an iceberg. And he's like, we could have been friends, Superman, but you just have to learn. And he's like, oh, but I have learned, Wraith. And he reaches into his little utility belt and he pulls out a ring that apparently is essentially kryptonite to Wraith. It analyzed his structure, and it made something that will have the same effect on him. And he says, like, yeah, I learned this by being just as paranoid as one of my good friends. And Batman, who's watching on the camera, is like, he's talking about me. So he knocks down Wraith. He's fully taken him out. Wraith is like, you dare humiliate me in front of my general? And he's like, yeah, I do. Leave. And General Lane pops over the comms and just like, yeah, Wraith, leave. And he's like, we'll meet again, Superman. And so Wraith flies off. Meanwhile, we cut over to the Fortress of Solitude, where Lois is inside of Superman's like zoo of all of his creatures he's collected from dying planets. And Superman's looking at the crystal, trying to figure out what the hell's going on with it. And Lois is like, so this is where you live, huh? This is cold and feels like an office. The zoo's kind of cool, though. And he's like, yeah, sorry, look, I'm going to keep you here because I think there's still some Ascension members out there. So we're going to keep you safe here for now. Just trying to figure out this crystal. And he looks into it. He's hitting it with like every form of eyesight he has, X-ray, telescopic, everything there. And he sensed that there's something else like inside the shard, something like sentient that was pushing back against him. And as he's looking in at it, he's like, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on? And Lois is like, what's going on? And he explains that the signal that the crystal is sending out, it's rewriting itself like as he's watching it. Like somebody knows that he is watching it. And then all of a sudden there's a big boom outside, and Superman looks out the window and sees that the entire U.S. military is outside, and they have declared war on Superman. So they've got big guns, and they're ready to fire. And that's where the issue ends, but we do get the epilogue of Batman coming back from the watchtower. He teleports in, and standing in the cave is Wraith. And he's like, if you're here to intimidate me, you're wasting your time. And Wraith's like, no, Batman, I'm just going to kill you. So Wraith's going to kill Batman. Batman's going to die in Superman Unchained number 7. Don't you remember that happening? Don't you remember Batman dying in an untitled Superman book? Yeah, no, it's a good enough issue. It's fine. I'm really feeling the delays. That's the biggest issue here right now. Like, I started reading this issue and I just got like 3 pages in. I'm like, what in the hell is even happening here? So I had to go back to last issue, refresh myself, and I was like, oh, right, the Earthstone and Ascension and all that stuff. But like, yeah, no, this book needed to come out a lot faster than it did. It's not a bad issue in its own right, but like, I'm just not engaging with it because it feels like it's taking too long, and I'm 100% putting that on Jim Lee. So yeah, I'm going to put this as a It's like a 7. Like, I wish I cared more, because it's a big deal. Superman just, like, completely stopped the entire nuclear arsenal of the world. He just Superman Ford the crap out of it. But, like, I don't care because it's lost its momentum by not being published frequently enough. And sure, that's the purpose of trades, but for people who were doing this as it was coming out, I can't say that's good. So yeah, it's a 7. Green Lantern New Guardians, number 29, written by Justin Jordan, art by Brad Walker. So last issue, we got introduced to this planet that is seemingly got this actual god fighting for it, and it turns out that it is Xal, the Tamaranian god. So we open up with a backstory here of saying that Tamaran long ago, Xal freed them from their enemies and like outside world, brought peace and all that sort of stuff. And then one day Xal just bailed on the planet. And a lot of people were like, well, crap, we're going with you. So they all took off in rockets, but they were unable to keep up with Xal. So they just made do on a planet that was nearby, and they set up shop. And they built up an entire civilization there. It was many generations later, but like things kind of sucked. And we meet the main like proselytizer of the group, Kalander, and she like grew up with nothing. She realized this world sucks. Everyone had faith in Xal, but like it had been years since she'd been around, and in fact her entire life she didn't truly believe. She felt like this is war and poverty and everything sucks. Why should I believe in something that has never shown its face before? And then one day Xal showed back up, and she was like, oh, this is it. And Xal spread her light amongst the people, and it cured their illnesses, did whatever else. It brought them fully back to life. And she was immediately forgiven by Xal. And Zal's like, yeah, sure. No, totally. You're cool. So immediately their world prospered, like plants, animals, everything grew. Everybody was happy. And she said, okay, I'm going to travel more. I want you to spread the word of me. And because you guys lost faith after so much time, I'm going to impart a piece of my firepower stuff into you in order to allow you to show people that I'm real. And so they went around world to world and did that stuff. So Xal, of course, at this point has arrived. Carol has put Xal inside of a construct and just like, look, you're saying she's benevolent. That's cool. But like, we just want to make sure on that, okay? And right now she just showed up here. So the Guardians come in. They're about to do some investigation. And Xal just shatters the construct with like a thought. Like it barely did anything. So at that point we have, she brings up I guess a platform you'd call it, but it's also doubles as like a cathedral. And Kalander's like, yep, nope, we're here to save the world. We're here to restore it back to how well it should be. And we see all the people on like both sides of this skirmish have bowed down and they're now praying to Xal. And Xal looks over at Kyle, who's just standing there, and she's like, oh, you're not going to kneel? And she's like, I've already possibly been a god. I'm not that impressed by it anymore. And Zal's just like, you won't kneel? Cool. I like that. You're chill. You're a good dude. And she's just like, I'm sorry, you're cool with that? You don't demand that we like praise you at all times? And just be like, nah. Praise all the time gets kind of boring. I don't really care for it. As long as you're cool, we're cool. And she looks over at the Guardians just being like, also, I mean, you're saying you were maybe a god. These guys are definitely gods. And Guardians like, we're not gods. And it's like, okay, but like your kind literally tried to reshape the universe. You're gods. Like that's almost pretty much the definition of it. And it's like, all right, but like we're not. So... And then she calls out the lanterns and be like, and like lanterns, you guys make stuff out of your imagination. What do you call that? That sounds pretty godlike to me. So at that point, the Guardians speak up and they're just like, okay, but like you made like this giant pedestal. You don't want to be worshipped. Like, why are you here? And just like, I'm here to change things for the better. That's the whole reason I'm here. And she starts spreading out this like molten lava fire from her, to which Kyle immediately blocks off and just like, you're not melting the planet until I'm positive you're good, right? And she's just like, I'm sorry, do you really think you can stop me if I really wanted to? It's like, I don't want you to like stop you. I just want to believe that you have these people's best interests at heart. And he's just like, look, you don't really get to command me, so I'm just going to keep doing this. And then Calandra jumps in and just be like, okay, hold on. They're cool people. Let me convince them of how good you are, okay? And you guys, stop pissing off my god. God damn it. So at that point, she says, like, look, let the light wash over the world. If it looks like it's not helping anything, then yeah, take her out. Do whatever you got to do. But, like, I promise you it will be. So Carol stays back with the god. Calandra and Kyle fly off to see what's going on around the planet as it's happening. So we see that it is essentially accelerating the planet's natural process. It allows for immediate plant growth, stuff like that. People bathe in the waters that it creates, and it just heals them of all illnesses and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, no, she's cool. She's good. And Kyle's like, it seems like it, but like I have met a lot of mad gods in my time, you know? So at that point, giant fireball, blue fireball, just blasts down out of the sky, almost hits them. And Kyle and Calandra's like, it's not me, was it you? No? All right, cool. And as it crashes down right next to Zal, we see it as one of the god killers from before. And it's just like, all right, I found you. We're finally here. And she's like, I wasn't hiding. What's going on? And it's just like, oh, that's right. You don't remember. You don't remember, like, who we are, what happened there. And then the god killer gives a different story to what we got in the beginning, which is there was a young girl named Zal who was taken by the quote-unquote makers, and she was experimented upon, and she was given this untold power, and she used that power to then destroy the maker's ship and drove them out of the system. And then she came down to Tamaran, and she brought peace and prosperity and blah, blah, blah. Or maybe it wasn't Tamaran, maybe it was some other planet. But regardless, she came down, and she brought peace and prosperity and whatnot. And she saved this guy's entire people. And then one day the makers returned. And Zal got so triggered by that, she blew up the whole planet in order to destroy them, therefore killing all of the God Killer's people. And Zalander is just immediately smacks him upside the head and just being like, nope, that's a lie. How dare you say that about my God? And God Killer's like, hey, I'm not a liar. You want proof? Just ask her. See if it happened. She's like, no, of course it didn't happen. Tell him, Zal. And Zal just looks down all sad. And Calandra's like, no, you're a good person. You wouldn't do that. To which point the God Killer is just like, all right, well, how convenient you like to edit your own history. Anyway, we're God Killers. We kind of hate everything that you're about. So, bye. And then a bunch more come down. All of them have like spears and stuff. And they shove them into Zal, seemingly killing her. So we'll see how that turns out. I doubt it's permanent. Zal seems more of a can exist through the life of others sort of thing, but we'll get there. I liked it. I think it was a solid issue of really like examining the idea of like how people respond to altruism in this sort of way where it's just like, okay, but like with that much power, you should at least be some amount corrupt, you know? There shouldn't be even like a question here. So yeah, I'm going to say I enjoyed it. I think that it's setting up for an interesting thing here. I hope that Zal isn't actually like dead, but I don't want to peek ahead to find out. So yeah, no, I'm interested. I'll give this one a... No, I'll give it an 8. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot. Wonder Woman number 29, written by Brian Azzarello, art by Cliff Chiang. So last issue, it's just a mad dash. Everybody's going to Olympus, and Firstborn is fighting against Apollo, and it seems like he blew up Olympus. So we pick back up in Provence, where Hera is trying to get something to drink, and she's talking to the person there who's like, well, we have a fine selection of wines. And she's like, I have tasted so much wine in Olympus. Give me something new. Like, none of your wine would even be close to the godlike wine. Give me like a, what was it, like a Jack and Coke? Let me try that out for a change. And then all of a sudden, a giant green ball of energy light thing comes in and it just hits Hera, and she like looks like she's irradiated. But then we cut over to Artemis and Hermes, who are still going after Cassandra, trying to figure out what's going on there. And Artemis, they look up in the eye and they see this giant explosion in the sky. And Hermes is like, that's not good. And Artemis is immediately like, something's wrong with Apollo. we got to go to Olympus now. And Hermes is like, cool. So they teleport into Olympus. Meanwhile, we see, what is it? Cassandra's ship is just like falling out of the sky, basically. It is exploded with Olympus. Everything's going wrong. So Zola's on the ship. She's talking to the baby Zeke, and it's just like, don't worry, everything's gonna be okay, Zeke. Everything's cool. But the ship is literally falling out of the sky. But then all of a sudden, it rightens out, and Cassandra's like, great, cool, you got the ship back online. And the guy's like, all of our engines are still dead. I don't know what's happening. And we see outside the ship is Wonder Woman, who is literally holding it up and trying to set it down on top of Olympus. And of course, right as soon as Artemis and Hermes teleport in, that's where Wonder Woman just sets down the ship, like, right on top of them. And just like, all right, well, that sucks. So they work their way out of the wreckage, and everyone steps out. Everyone sees, like, what's going on here. But Artemis freaks out because she is no longer able to feel Apollo's, like, energy. It's not there. So she's crying out. She's freaking out. Cassandra's like, well, you guys must have had a interesting relationship. And Artemis just starts coming at her swinging. The Minotaur bats her away. And Wonder Woman's like, yeah, no, Cassandra's like, a Zeus's kid. It's a whole thing. But Artemis is like, no, don't you understand? Apollo is gone. He's dead. So we see all of a sudden there's this blood, like, gore sort of stuff that's spreading over Mount Olympus. And we see that the army of the Firstborn is, like, howling. And as they look up on where the throne of Olympus was, Firstborn is there. He's been completely, like, skinned. He's burned away. His body is nothing but just muscle and sinew. And he's like, hey, everyone, it's me. I claimed Olympus. It is my birthright. Bow down. And Artemis is, of course, super pissed. She launches in again for an attack. And Firstborn, like, blood vessels, long strands come out of his body and grab hold of Artemis and just start draining her of her energy. And Firstborn's like, I didn't kill Apollo. He committed suicide rather than having to die by my hands. So, yeah, you should follow his lead. And we see Artemis is just getting drained, so Wonder Woman steps up. She's got, like, a big glowing scythe thing going on, and she comes in and slices the cables that were attached to Firstborn. And Artemis says, like, hey, Wonder Woman, remember when I agreed to help you? I would need something from you? Well, I need you to stop denying your, like, claim, You've got a mantle to uphold. Do it. So Wonder Woman gets caught up in, like, the blood stuff now. And she snaps a few of them. Cassandra's like, it's no use fighting. We're in charge now. So then Firstborn wraps up her mouth as well and just be like, what do you mean we? No, you've been cool, but, like, I'm in charge. I'm just not, like, I won't kill you. I won't ground you into jelly. That's literally the only thing you get out of this. So the Minotaur, like, steps up ready to fight, and he's like, really, you want to go? And Minotaur's like, no, we're cool. So Wonder Woman says, like, I will never, bow down to you or whatever. And she's just like, okay, well, that's not even an offer. I'm just going to kill you straight up. And he says, his whole thing of, like, I get it now. Nothing lasts forever. So therefore, I must be nothing. That was the lesson I was supposed to learn all along. I am nothing. Wahahaha. And then all of a sudden, a green lightning bolt comes in and frees Wonder Woman. And it's Hera. She now has her powers back. That was Apollo's dying thing, is giving back Hera her powers. And she starts saying just like, oh, I am Queen of Olympus. And Wonder Woman steps up being like, no, you can't possibly win this. We got to bail now. And she's like, son of a... All right, fine, we'll bail. So she teleports everybody out, including Zola, like all of their main crew here. Cassandra's left up there, obviously. And we see we're teleported to Paradise Island. And Wonder Woman meets up with Zola, and she's like, oh my god, I was so worried about you. I'm sorry I made you feel upset that you felt like you had to run away. I'm so sorry about that. And Hera's like, if we're going for a forgiveness thing as well, I hope that I can be forgiven. And Wonder Woman's like, you saved us from Firstborn. Of course I forgive you. And it's like, no, I'm not talking about you. And we look over, and we see that in order for them to fight Firstborn, they think they need an army. So Hera has reconstituted all of the Amazons. They all now have their original bodies, and they're all standing here in army formation. And Here's like, I hope that they can forgive me because, yeah, we're going to need a fight here. So Wonder Woman steps up and says, hey, how's it going, everybody? Glad to have you back. Heaven has been taken over by a mad god, and we need to go fight him. So don't view me as your princess. View me as the new god of war. And she has finally taken up her mantle, sword being struck by lightning in a dramatic pose, and Kratos is about to sue for copyright infringement. So, yeah, I like this issue. It's a good, fine issue. It sets up some big stakes for where we're moving here. It does feel like we're moving into like the final act. This is it. This is what we've been building up to the whole time. And obviously Wonder Woman getting the title of God of War, that's super cool, super awesome. Very good character change that I know reflects across several other books as well. So it's something that actually sticks for a decent amount of time. Yeah, overall, I'd probably give this issue, I'm going to say 8. And the only reason I'm not going higher than that, like an 8, I don't think it deserves a 9 in any situation, but I'm not giving it an 8.5 because it moves like really, really quickly. And it's not in a way that like I'm just rushing through it. Like I wanted more. I wanted there to be more to this issue. I wanted it to be like, as much as we are about to move into the third act, this didn't feel like the end of the second act. This felt like the transitionary period where we're just kind of also leaving a bunch of stuff to be dealt with later. So that's the only reason, but still super good issue. Looking forward to the third act here. And yeah, 8 for this. Animal Man number 29, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Travel Foreman and Jeff Lemire. So last issue was the big wrap-up. The red was safe. Everything is good to go. This is just the epilogue issue where Jeff Lemire wraps everything up. So we open up with in the red, Buddy is talking to Socks and Shepherd and is basically saying like, the red needs totems. You guys are the best. I mean, Socks used to be a totem himself, and then Shepherd, you are kind and nice and cool, so I'm really begging you guys to become the new totems. And Shepherd puts up a little bit of a fight, but Socks is just like, yeah, it makes sense. It's something we should do, but here's the thing. We need an avatar out there, and we need one who is experienced because like, with all the stuff that's just happened in the red, it's going to need protecting now more than ever. And Buddy puts out there, like, okay, I will take up the mantle. I will be the official avatar of the red. However, it doesn't continue down my bloodline. Maxine is free from it from now on. And, like, my family, once I'm gone, once I pass on the mantle, it's gone from my family forever. Deal? And they're like, yeah, no, like, Maxine, for everything she's been through, she deserves a better life than that. So absolutely, we wholeheartedly agree. So they all make the deal there. And Sock specifically says, like, okay, but like one more thing on our side. The order of priorities for you is at the bottom, the red. Next up is Animal Man. And then on top is your family, like specifically Maxine. You need to be the best father for her that you can possibly be. And he's like, yeah, deal. So Socks and Shepherd transform. They become the new totems. And but he's recounting this whole thing to Ellen, and he specifically says, like, and as I stood there looking up at them, I thought the best part of this is Socks won't pee on the carpet anymore. So we see they're back at home, and Buddy's saying all this to Ellen, and Ellen's just like, okay, but, like, you're still Animal Man. You're still going to be in danger. And she's like, yeah, but this is all going to be different. It's like, how is that any different from all the other times you told me this is all going to be different? And he's like, now this is a 9 to 5 for me. I do Animal Man stuff. I come home at night and I leave that all behind me. If that's a problem for the new totems, then they can find someone else because that is the deal. That is how we're doing this now. And Ellen's like, okay, fine, but whenever something happens out there, tell me. Be open about it. Like, let's make communication a big thing here. Tell me everything. And Buddy says that he promises, but he's thinking about his deal that he made with the Bridgewalker of saying how he'd take his place as soon as all this was done. But he doesn't mention that yet. So he says he's going to go check in on Maxine. He goes over to her room. She's still awake. It's late at night, but she's still up. And he's like, oh, hey, do you want me to like tell you a story or something? Get you go to sleep? And she's like, oh, well, how about I tell you a story instead? And he's like, what? Why? And he's like, I don't know. You just seem like you need a story. But it's a little bit scary, but happy too. And this is where Jeff Lemire's art kicks in. It's all done in like a storybook looking style. And she basically describes the events of the book. She says that there was a princess and her daddy, and they were in charge of a kingdom, and the daddy went off to fight some big scary things, and he was super big, but the princess had a prince, a brother, who was captured by the bad things, and that was because the daddy wasn't always there. But then the daddy went out and tried to go into the rotten forest to find the prince, but there were a bunch of bad things out there. And we see like the people from Rot World, we see the Splinter Folk, we see Brother Blood, and we see that like, oh, but the daddy wasn't alone either. He had a Swamp Thing and a lady with white hair and socks, and they all helped fight against, and they managed to save the day. But at the end of it all, the prince was still missing. And so the princess went out on a ship, and she sailed the seas looking high and low for the prince, but she still couldn't find him. And that made her super duper sad that despite all of it, she couldn't manage to bring back her brother. Until one day, all the animals gathered around and told the princess a secret that it doesn't matter because the rest of her family is still together. And one day, her family, you know, after they've lived a long and happy life together, they'll end up dying too, and they'll go to the place where her brother is, and they'll be together again there. So, yeah, that's the story. And it's super grim. And, like, it's all told through this happy lens, but, like, this is a 4-year-old saying this. You really got to remember that. So Buddy hears it all. It says ends with happily ever after. And he's like stifling back tears, but he's like, that is a really nice story, Maxine. Thank you for that. So he kisses her goodnight. He stops in, sees his wife, kisses her on the forehead, says goodnight. And then he goes outside to the porch and he sees a small purple spider, which I believe is from the annual of this. And he picks it up and he brings it outside and he sets it down in the grass and says, goodnight, Cliff. And then the camera zooms out and we see the Baker household where he was standing outside, and the last panel shows he's not there anymore. So whether he went inside, whether he was beamed up by the bridge walker, who knows? But then the very final thing says good night, Animal Man, and that is Animal Man's book. It's a really short, sweet final issue. It's just a little capper on, hey, let's take a look back on the adventure we have. Let's give a little bit of closure to where our characters are going to end up, what's going on there, and then this little hint of, and what's happening in the future. Is he already gone? Did he say goodnight to his family there and, like, is already forced to go to this other dimension and become the new Bridgewalker? I don't know. It's a lot to take in, but I really enjoyed this book the whole way through. I think this ending does a pretty good job of doing it justice there. Obviously, it's not really comparable to being of any of the other issues because it is so much just its own self-contained thing. But, I mean, having gone through the other, how many would have been? An annual, the 0 issue, at least 30 issues leading up to this, it's a solid ending. It's a nice little thing where it's not doing too much. It's not leaving it on like this cliffhanger of saying like, join Animal Man over in the Batman issue 34 or whatever. It's just saying, this is it. It's all just its own self-contained thing. So I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it an 8.5. The run as a whole, I would give like 9 or 9.5. I think this is a top tier look. I haven't read the Morrison Animal Man stuff, but I think that this one does a fantastic job of giving us this character who hasn't gotten a lot of play and does something interesting with him. Does like a continuous story that makes sense and more importantly is willing to mess with the status quo of the character. At the end of each arc, it's not a matter of, oh, we're pretty much back to where we were to begin with. Like, he has had deaths in his family. He has had his marriage destroyed and reformed. Like, there's a lot to this, and I think Lemire did a fantastic job of working through all that. So, yeah, this specific issue, I'm going to say 8.5, but, like, the run as a whole, one of the all-timers. And that's it. That's all the comics published by DC Comics this March 19th, 2014. And next week is nothing to laugh at. We have 15 comics coming out, one of them being a one-shot, and a bunch of others being finales to series that have been going on for a while here. So let's take a look at what we got in no particular order. We have Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller #1, Forever Evil Argus, Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion, Batman the Dark Knight, Catwoman, Talon, Superman, Larfleeze, Red Lanterns, Aquaman, Flash, World's Finest, All-Star Western, Teen Titans, and Justice League Dark. So what is ending out of that? Well, obviously the Forever Evil Argus and Rogues Rebellion, those were both miniseries, so they are ending after issue 6. Suicide Squad Amanda Waller is a one-shot, so you could technically say that that's ending just as soon as it started. Talon is on its final issue. That's it for that. And I believe there was one more. Oh, right. Justice League Dark is the final part of Forever Evil Blight, I think. I'm like 70% sure of that. I'm not going to put money on it, but I'm pretty sure it's the end of that. And that's been going on for 18 parts. So yeah, it deserves a mercy killing. Beyond that, I think everything else is pretty normal. World's Finest is a next part of a crossover between it and Batman/Superman. And I think that's pretty much all that's on there. But yeah, in other news, I'm just going to throw this out here at the end. You may have noticed in one of the earlier reviews, somewhere in the episode, I was wearing glasses. If you comment on this video, the YouTube video, which review that was to prove you were watching, you'll get nothing. But I will heart your comment. I will give a little heart on that and say, I see you. You did it. Congratulations. This isn't me trying to garner interaction to gain the algorithm. No. I believe in you, person. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. That is the episode. If you have any comments on any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and leave them down there, along with that thing about the glasses. Or if you have any other places that you want to share them, we have multiple social media things, such as a Discord and a subreddit and a Patreon. All the links to those are either on screen or in the description below, but that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening. However it is you consume this podcast, be sure to tune in next week, and always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.